Well, joining us now is Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, I think you're over here. I don't know if you can hear me and see me. I can see you now. Good to talk to you again. Yep. You know, when we spoke on Sunday on Face the Nation, you told me that the Harris campaign had a problem with turning out men. Are you seeing that tonight? And what are you seeing in terms of who is a decisive factor here for the Trump campaign?
Well, let's be clear. We don't know yet anything. I mean, we're still counting votes, as you said. There's still states out there, so I'm not going to claim anything. But I am going to say, and I'm sure your exit polls are showing this as well, you know, Donald Trump is winning a majority of the new voters. I think he's actually won over 5 or 6% of Biden voters. He's done exceptionally well among African-American men, doing incredibly well among Hispanic men, overperforming in Hispanic precincts and neighborhoods in Reading, just outside of Philadelphia, as an example. I think this election, and again, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but what we know right now is going to fundamentally remake not just the Republican Party, but what we know about American politics. I think it's time to begin to realize that the primary identity that voters bring to the ballot box is not the color of their skin, their ethnicity. It's what they do for a living. It's how much money they make or don't make. It's how hard life is for them. And I think that's really what we're seeing come through tonight. And you're going to see more of that when Nevada begins to come through, and Arizona more and more. But we're certainly seeing that tonight in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, everywhere we've looked.
Senator, in your home state of Florida, there was an abortion-related measure tonight that failed. It failed to hit that 60% supermajority threshold that would enshrine access to reproductive rights beyond the 6-week limit that is the current state law. What's your message to voters? Because it was still a significant turnout, just short of that 60% threshold.
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately what happened with the Supreme Court's ruling is that now this is going to be in the hands of individual states and their elected legislators to pass laws, how restrictive, how not restrictive they want to make it. You know, I have my own views on it, but voters will get to weigh in on it and vote for or against state legislators that they agree or disagree with them. It's basically federalize the issue, meaning it's returning to federalism, returning that issue back to states. And, you know, there's been votes in other states like Ohio and Kansas where the vote went in a different direction when it was done. So I imagine it's probably not the last time we'll see that issue on the ballot in Florida, and certainly not the last time we'll see that issue debated nationally.
Well, with 57% of the voters saying they would like to have a broader access, that would be interesting to revisit. But let's talk about control of the Senate and Congress right now. It looks like that is going to be perhaps a tremendous either asset to the next commander-in-chief or the brakes on the agenda for perhaps a future Trump administration. What are you thinking there in terms of what those day one issues would be if Donald Trump is victorious tonight?
Well, I think he's been pretty clear what those are. The first is the securing our border. I think you're seeing across the board. I'm especially, you know, I especially point to how concerned they are in Hispanic communities about what illegal migrants who are criminals that are coming to this country already with criminal records, they're coming to Hispanic communities. That's something that's been forgotten here. You're seeing that play out tonight. You're seeing, so I think that's going to be top of the agenda. And then our economy, the cost of living. You look at Philadelphia, I think the Philadelphia and its suburbs have the highest increase in food costs of anywhere in the country. That's a factor here tonight. That's a factor in this election, and it's going to have to be a factor Congress deals with. And then I think there's concern about the state of the world. And Donald Trump did something that no Republican's been able to do in a long time, and that is position himself as the candidate of peace and stability, not getting into wars, but preventing them through strength, but preventing them. I think that's a valuable lesson. I do want to point out, we don't know yet the numbers finally, but in Ohio, a Colombian American, Bernie Moreno, is on the verge of victory in Pennsylvania and Montana. So, you know, there would be a real responsibility of governing that comes with a majority that gets to 53 or maybe even 54.
Indeed. Senator Rubio joining us there from the Trump campaign headquarters. Nora?
Thank you. And it is a good night for Republicans. You just heard Senator Rubio mention that, and CBS News can now project that Republican Bernie Moreno will win the Senate seat in Ohio, and that flips the seat from Democrat Sherrod Brown, who had been a popular Democrat in that state and had represented the state for some time and had a leadership position in the United States. But Bernie Moreno winning handily in that state at this hour, and CBS News projects he will be the next United States Senator from Ohio. And joining J.D. Vance, unless J.D. Vance becomes Vice President of the United States.
I do remember on the floor of the convention the day that Vance was picked, Moreno turned to me and said, well, I may end up being the senior senator of Ohio by January. And everyone kind of went, hey, don't get ahead of yourself. But it very well could happen if J.D. Vance is headed to the vice president.
I just want to underscore what Senator Rubio brought up there. In terms of, we spent so much time talking about the Latino vote and talking about the economy. Those are the two things he said we're thinking of in the wrong way.
Yep.
Sure.
Don't look at people based on identity. He said, look on their jobs, on their pay, on inflation, and hitting that again and again.
And that's been the Rubio thesis since he ran for president in 2016.
Well, it's also been the Trump
true.
thesis for the 2 years he's been running this campaign.
Yeah.
Those have been the two issues. The Harris campaign had a much shorter runway, a much shorter time on this campaign, as you pointed out at the get-go, less than 100 days. And we're not seeing that reproductive health care vote play out as some had expected.